Hi guys, welcome back, or welcome to Switch to Life. And in today's video, we are going to be reviewing The Lion Guard in preparation for the upcoming Lion King prequel, Mufasa. We're also doing this today because it marks the 9-year anniversary of the series premiere when it came out with the television movie, The Lion Guard, Return of the Roar. And I'm just gonna say that despite the fact that this series is a preschool series, it's made for Disney Junior of all places, it actually was really good. In fact, I'm actually standing here questioning, is this show even made for toddlers? Because, sure, the first season, it's definitely one of those preschool series. But when you get to season 2, and especially season 3, it actually grows up. And I honestly cannot believe that this is a Disney Junior show. In fact, I personally consider that this is the single greatest Disney Junior show. To be honest, though, I haven't actually seen a lot. I've only seen a couple episodes of about 10% of the Disney Junior shows, so. But with that in mind, let's talk about what makes this series so good. First off, it's animation. I gotta say that I both liked and hated the animation. They have amazing backgrounds, they have amazing character designs, not to mention the way that they get the characters to move, it's so fluid. The problem is when the characters are interacting with each other or even with the background. They don't really feel like they're part of the background. They just feel like they've been copy and pasted onto there, which isn't really that great. But again, I love the character animation and I love the beautiful scenery. As for the voice acting, well, it's a preschool series. Sometimes it feels like the characters are just reading off of a script. So there's sometimes not a lot of emotion, but I feel like that a great reason for that is simply because they actually have a bunch of kids playing our main characters. These guys aren't really experienced in voice acting, and because of that, they're just doing their best, and I'm glad that they decided to go with a bunch of kids. But aside from our main characters, there's a ton of great voice actors in this series, including those who play original characters like Janja and his clan, not to mention the fact that we have a ton of characters returning from the actual movies. Though, a very big problem, most of the voice actors don't actually return, the exception being Pumbaa. And while Timon does sound a little bit like his movie counterpart, though he doesn't really act like it because he's not a jerk, pretty much all of the other characters are played by voice actors who sound nothing like their movie counterparts. So that is one thing that I hated, but to be honest, the voice acting was pretty good. Not great, just good. At least there's a lot of fun, good, family-friendly humor. As for the music, oh man, the music is simply phenomenal. Not only does the background music and even the theme song, they just hit so hard. And then, of course, there's also the songs where the characters are singing. Yes, because this is based off The Lion King, which is a Disney musical, they turned this series into a musical. Most of the episodes only have one song, but there are quite a few episodes that have multiple songs in them, which is really great. And of those songs, a lot of them are hits. I actually enjoyed listening to a large majority of them. Though I do need to point out that there are a few songs where the voice actors for the characters don't actually sing. It's a completely different voice actor who plays the singing voice, and that's just unnerving. I mean, it worked with the original Lion King just because I grew up with those songs. They had a singing and a talking voice actor for one character. Here, it's unnerving. So, as for the story, well, there's actually a really great story over the course of this 78-episode series. We start with the 2-part 1-hour movie, Return of the Roar, which you can actually find on YouTube if you go do a search. But essentially, we learn that Simba had another kid aside from Kiara named Kion, and being the second born, Kion doesn't really have a lot going for him. Kiara's training to be the next queen, but Kion's got nothing. And he's playing with his best friend Bunga the honey badger, and the two of them end up in trouble when they fall into Janja's hyena den. and that is when Kion unleashes the Roar. The Roar of the Elders is a super powerful roar where you basically summon all of your ancestors and they roar with you. And because of it, it just makes a super powerful wind that can blow enemies away. And while I'm sure that that sounds a little bit too magical, along with the fact that in this series we see Rafiki using his staff to make paintings move, I feel like that stuff is actually okay because it doesn't really break the lore. Granted, yes, it does seem magical, but then again, in the original movie, Simba is talking to his dead dad, so magic does exist in The Lion King, so I feel like the Lion Guard is actually canon to the main franchise, especially because Disney has not come forward to say otherwise. Unlike what they did with the Timon and Pumbaa TV show, which if you want, you can check out my review in the description down below. But when Kion unlocks the Roar, this actually makes it so that Simba and Rafiki tell him about the Lion Guard, a team of lions that protects the Pride Lands from anyone who would do harm to the Circle of Life, which is made up of the team's fiercest, which is the leader of the team, and more often than not is the younger sibling of the next king or queen. We actually learned that Scar was actually leader of his own Lion Guard before he turned evil. Alongside the fiercest, there's also the bravest, the strongest, the fastest, and the keenest of sight. And when Kion is tasked with assembling a new Lion Guard, he decides to gather a bunch of his friends because he feels like they have the qualities that mean they're the best in the Pride Lands. Bunga is the bravest because he just doesn't know how to fear.
Brave bordering on stupid. Thanks, Kiara!
Because she is a cheetah and probably the fastest cheetah in the entire world. There's also Beshti, the strongest, and he's actually a hippo, so pretty strong. And of course, there's also Ono. He's a bird who's called an egret, but he also has the keenest vision out of the entire bird world. So Kion and his friends form the new Lion Guard, and they go around defending the Circle of Life and the Pride Lands from anyone who would do either of them harm. Fun fact, Kion's Lion Guard is the first Lion Guard to not be made entirely of lions, and also the first one to include a female. Over the course of the season, we see them defend from Outlanders and also just helping the Pridelanders with mundane tasks. That's pretty much what the plot of the first season is. Sure, they do make a few dozen enemies, like Janja and his hyena clan, Ray Ray and her family of jackals, Maku and his army of crocodiles, which they don't really feel like enemies, they're just there. But to be honest, Maku does redeem himself by the start of season 2, so there's that. And there's even a special one-time episode where Zira and her family appear, including Nuka, Kovu, and Vitani. They all show up in that one episode. And we also meet a new hyena named Jasiri. Turns out that not all hyenas are inherently evil. Some hyenas, like Jasiri and her clan, actually respect the Circle of Life. And this means that Kion has a friend in the Outlands, which is really good. Which reminds me, being a preschool series, this show does have a lot of really good lessons. For instance, like with Jasiri, Sisi Nisawa, which means we are the same. And there's a ton of other references to African language. Which African language? I don't know. A lot of the times it's hard to understand, but we do learn the meaning behind a lot of the words that they say. There's also the moral lessons, like with what I was saying, we are the same. It means that lions and hyenas are not so different to the point where they can't get along. It's basically like water and rain. That's just the most popular example, but still, there's plenty of lessons in here. There is another thing that I love about this series. It dives into the concept of the Circle of Life and goes further into detail. Basically, we know how carnivores need to hunt and kill for sport, and the series isn't afraid to dive into that. Sure, we don't actually see any kills happening on screen, but we do see the Lion Guard step in to try to protect innocent people from people who try to kill them. And we even hear conversations about how the Lion Guard members, like Fuli the cheetah and Kion the lion, even though they try to be helpful to all of the Pride members, when they need to eat, they only eat what they need. We do see them go hunting in a few of the episodes, but we never actually see them kill anyone, which in my opinion is good because this is a preschool series. But the fact that it's not afraid to explain that these guys are carnivores and they need to eat each other is actually really good. But then it's on to season 2, and this is where things get really interesting. In a brand new television movie called The Rise of Scar, yes, you heard me right, Scar is going to come back from the dead, which I was really surprised that they went in that direction, but I am so happy that they did because it just made season 2 a lot more awesome. So it starts when a snake named Ushari is accidentally trampled and turned into collateral damage during one of the Lion Guard's rescues, and he goes off into the Outlands where the hyenas find him, and they have a conversation about how a lion could actually be helpful to the hyenas taking over the Pride Lands. And there's only one lion who actually was a friend to hyenas, Scar. Now, there is one thing that I really want to point out. Janja and his clan of hyenas are actually descendants of Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed from their clan. We don't actually know the lineage, but my personal headcanon and many others, Janja is actually the son of Shenzi and Bonsai, and Ed is the father of Cheesy and Chungu. Now, for some reason, Janja just mentions that Scar died in a fire, and also he's actually willing to trust Scar. And I find that really weird because at the end of the first Lion King movie, Scar betrayed the hyena clan, and Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed, along with many other hyenas, actually leaped into a bunch of flames to eat him alive. And for some reason, I feel like if Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed were to survive that, they would have gone home and bragged about it to their offspring, including Janja. And because of that, and the fact that Janja actually trusts Scar, even though he betrayed the hyenas in the past, and the fact that he says that Scar died in the flames instead of Scar was eaten by my own ancestors, this actually makes me believe that Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed actually did die, and the only reason that Janja didn't was because he was just too young to be part of that final battle. But anyway, back to the story. So Janja and Ushari try to make a plan to bring Scar back from the dead in the same way that Mufasa and other lions of the past can talk to their descendant. So Ushari comes up with an idea to trick Makini, who is actually Rafiki's brand new apprentice, and I really like that Rafiki got an apprentice. Unfortunately, I just don't really like Makini that much. She's a bit too annoying if you ask me. But anyway, Makini asks if there's a possibility to bring back evil lions under the influence of Ushari, and Rafiki says that while you can bring back the lions of the past by speaking to them in the clouds, lions of evil are born from fire, and in order to bring them back, you need a volcano, a royal Majusi staff, and the power of the roar. So Ushari and Janja go into the Outlands and set up a place so that Kion will roar, and by proxy, bring back Scar from the dead. Just like how Mufasa can give Simba and Kion advice from beyond the grave, now Scar is going to give advice to Janja and his clan. So Scar comes up with a plan to take over the Pride Lands. First, assemble all of the Outlanders, including but not limited to Janja and his hyena clan, Ray Ray and her family of jackals, and at the start of season 2, Scar actually tricks the crocodile tribe into dividing into two. There's Maku, who is the leader of the good crocodile clan, and Kibori, who tries to challenge Maku but fails, and because of that, he and his followers are banished to the Outlands when they try to kill Simba. So Scar assembles pretty much everyone in the Pride Lands, from the hyenas, the jackals, crocodiles, vultures, snakes, scorpions, and tons of others, and for some strange reason, there is one character who I feel like should have been part of the army, Zira. As we know, Zira is extremely loyal to Scar, to a fault. If she ever heard that Scar was back from the dead, she would have been absolutely willing to try to go help Scar take over the Pride Lands. And unfortunately, that just didn't happen. Scar never once reached out to Zira, and which is really weird. And you might be thinking, it's not like they could get her voice actress back. Well, to be honest, they actually replaced her voice actress in that one episode where she did show up. So obviously the show's creators knew that Zira was a thing, and they actually tried to get her in the show. And while they did, I find it so weird that she did not join Scar's army. It's so stupid. But anyway, with the army of Outlanders banded together, the Lion Guard have a bit of a handful and trouble, and they actually lose some territory when the Outlanders try to burn stuff down, and in the process, Scar actually gains new access to the Pride Lands, where anytime there's a fire, he has the opportunity to show up. Eventually, the Lion Guard discover that Scar is back from the dead, and that it's all Kion's fault, but they also realize that they need to come up with a plan. Just like how the Outlanders have assembled together to form an army, they need to make an army of their own with the Pridelanders. So they try to teach the Pridelanders how to fight, and when they do, they get ready for the final battle. And for some reason, that final battle doesn't happen in Season 2. They actually save the final battle for the Season 3 premiere, which I found to be a little bit weird. Then again, it did make sense because I guess the voice actors for the Lion Guard were growing up, and they simply decided to just have the characters grow up with the voice actors, which is really good because now they're basically teenagers, which is really great. Though it does mean that the war with Scar lasted for a few years. But anyway, during that final battle, the Pridelanders come up with a plan to take over the Outlands because, for the most part, they've just been defending the Pridelands, but now they're ready to go on the offensive. But then there's also another problem. Jasiri, the leader of another hyena clan, is actually working with the Pridelanders, and every time Janja sees this, he actually gets a little jealous. Every time they fail to take some territory, he actually gets a little bit abused from Scar, but Jasiri is actually praised for her efforts in working as the hyena resistance. But it's actually Scar's betrayal that's the final blow. So he has Janja and his hyenas distract the Lion Guard so that he can set a fire to Pride Rock. And in the process, he actually ends up trapping the hyenas in Pride Rock. He doesn't actually care about their safety. This is what makes Janja decides to switch sides, and he reveals that there is a way to defeat Scar. Just like how Kion used the roar to bring Scar back from the dead, if Kion were to use his most powerful roar in the bottom of the volcano where Scar was brought back to life, this would mean that Scar's connection to the living world would be extinguished and he would go back to dead. But this is actually a trick. Turns out that Scar just told that to Janja to test his loyalty, and when Janja revealed that, it's actually a plan of Scar. If Kion were to use his roar at the bottom of the volcano, it would cause an eruption so violent that it would completely destroy the Pride Lands. And just to make sure that this plan actually goes through, Scar reveals how exactly he got his scar. So, back when he was alive and going by the name Taka, Scar was actually leader of the Lion Guard, and he was lured away by another lion who ended up attacking him with a snake. after the snake bit Scar on the eye and giving him the scar, the lion said that he could cure Scar of the venom if he were to use the roar to overthrow Mufasa. But Scar just decided to kill the lion and the snake with the roar, and when he went back, he wanted to be revered as a hero, but Mufasa just nicknamed him Scar, and since then, Scar has been Taka's official name. Add that to the fact that the snake's venom actually made it so that Scar couldn't actually think straight. He could not tell the difference between right and wrong, and it actually makes him a victim, which I don't know how I feel about that. The reason why I love Scar is that he's pure evil, but if the reason that he's pure evil is just because snake venom made it so he can't tell the difference between right and wrong, again, I don't really know how to feel about that. But anyway, Scar comes up with a plan to dethrone Mufasa, and he recruits the help of his old lion guard. When they refuse, he actually kills them with the roar. But when that happens, the ancestors take away his ability to use the roar, and so Scar is nothing more than a lion. So Scar enacts his second plan, which is the stampede, and eventually we have the Lion King, where he's defeated by Simba and killed by his own hyenas. And then when he's brought back from the dead, he's going to destroy the Pride Land so that he can take it over once again. So, to recap, if Kion were to use his most powerful roar at the bottom of the volcano, it would cause an eruption that would destroy the entire Pride Lands. And with that in mind, Scar wants a way to make sure that happens. And the best way to do that is to give Kion his own scar. So he has Ushari bite Kion on the eye and gives him the mark of evil. At which point, the snake venom should corrupt Kion and make it so that he can't tell the difference between right and wrong. Problem is that Kion is just too good-natured at first, and he simply decides to forgive Scar and asks the ancestors what his fate should be. And instead of using the roar, he summons the ancestors to bring a rainstorm, and the rain extinguishes the volcano, making it so that Scar loses his connection to the living world. And just before that happens, Ushari tries to attack Kion, but Bunga leaps in and saves Kion until they both end up falling into the volcano. Then Ono dives in and rescues Bunga from a lava death. And so, peace in the Pride Lands is restored. Scar is defeated, and now that Janja is working on the side of good, the Outlands can be united, and he actually joins Jasiri's clan. In fact, I'm pretty sure that Janja wants to marry Jasiri. But anyway, Jasiri is named as the new leader of the Outlands, so the hyenas and jackals respect her, and the crocodiles, they're kind of just doing their own thing, but they're not going to cause any trouble. And the vultures, they agree to follow, and the snakes and reptiles and other characters in the Outlands, they all agree to follow Jasiri as their leader. And so, with the alliance forged, now the Pride Lands and Outlands are in peace, and there's no need for the Lion Guard, which is good because thanks to Scar giving Kion the snake bite, Kion is actually suffering from the venom, making it so that he's actually in a lot of pain, and it's getting hard to concentrate and think straight. Along with this, when Ono dived into the volcano to rescue Bunga, he actually got some volcanic ash in his system, and because of it, it caused a fog in his eyes, making it so that he's pretty much blind. I do not understand how Bunga doesn't have this, but he doesn't. So anyway, the Lion Guard tried to heal them, but they can't. That's when Rafiki says that they should go to the Tree of Life, which is a place of healing. And since Ono is no longer the keenest of sight, since he can't see, they need a new keenest of sight on the team, and that's when they invite Anga to join. Anga is an eagle who was first introduced during the last episode of Season 2, but she joins the team during the Season 3 premiere as the new keenest of sight, at which point Ono loses his mark, and instead, Kion comes up with a 6th member for the Lion Guard. While Ono is no longer the keenest of sight, he is now the smartest member of the Lion Guard. So, the Season 3 premiere ends with the Lion Guard leaving the Pride Lands and going on a journey to the Tree of Life, and with Makini to help them find the Mojo Komojo stones, which are landmarks to help them on their journey to the Tree of Life. They spend half of Season 3 going on said journey, and I really love this because they actually answered the question, Kion is so important to the Pride Lands, how come he wasn't in The Lion King 2? Well, the answer is he wasn't in the Pride Lands during The Lion King 2. So the Lion Guard is set in between the time when Kiara and Kovu first meet. Then the Lion Guard is assembled, at which point they defend the Pride Lands for a few years, up until the point where they journey off to the Tree of Life, at which point we have the rest of The Lion King 2. And I really love that they actually answered that question. But anyway, during the second half of Season 3, the Lion Guard managed to reach the Tree of Life, at which point they meet the Night Pride, led by Princess Rani, as well as a few other lions. And the Night Pride thinks that the Lion Guard is a threat, especially because Kion can't control his roar, so they don't let him into the Tree of Life. But luckily, Queen Janai, who is a really, really old lioness, actually wants Kion to be there in the Tree of Life. So the Night Pride goes back and actually invites the Lion Guard to come inside. And during the next few episodes, we see Kion trying to heal himself and learn how to control his emotions, as well as remove the snake venom from his system. Meanwhile, Ono is given a remedy that actually restores sight to his eyes. Unfortunately, his eyesight isn't as good as it once was. He's no longer the keenest of sight, but at least he can see like a normal person. But we need to back up, because during the first half of Season 3, while the Lion Guard was journeying to the Tree of Life, they ended up making a few enemies who decided to follow them all the way to the Tree of Life. So now the Night Pride and Lion Guard have to work together to defend the Tree of Life from this new predators, including a couple of leopards, a Komodo dragon, and for some strange reason, a character named Mama Binturong, who I don't even know what her species is. Is it a Binturong? But she's essentially a mafia boss who actually tries to gather as much Tuliza as she can. Tuliza is a special pink flower, which coincidentally is the exact flower that Kion needs so that he doesn't suffer from the pain of his snake bite during the journey. So every time they need new Tuliza, they have to go find it. And eventually they stumble across Mama Binturong's stash, and when they end up taking from it, they make an enemy for life. So Mama Binturong is the brains of these new predators, and she comes up with a few plans to try to take over the Tree of Life, but she's always being thwarted by the Night Pride, who protect the Tree of Life during the night, and the Lion Guard, except for Kion, who protect the Tree of Life during the day. Kion is still recovering from his healing process. While the snake venom is extracted, he still needs to learn how to control his emotions. Eventually, he does manage to learn to control them, but shortly after, we get a very, very dark episode. In fact, I would argue that this is not an episode made with preschoolers in mind. It is made just so the show can be good, which is really awesome. But anyway, during that episode, Queen Jana dies, and the entire episode is a funeral service to her, as well as the coronation of the next queen of the Tree of Life, Rani. So, during his time healing, Kion couldn't actually lead the Lion Guard, and because of that, he began to worry that without the roar, he wouldn't actually be a good leader. So, his friends step in and help him out. They realize that even without the roar, before he even became leader of the Lion Guard, he was a great leader, especially when they were kids trying to protect Ono's egg from a bunch of hyenas. And so Kion realizes that he doesn't need the roar to be a leader, and since he can't control it, he decides to talk to his grandfather Mufasa to give up the roar. But Mufasa sends him over to the very first leader of the first Lion Guard, Ascari. And while Kion tries to give up the roar to Ascari reveals that only someone who is truly willing to give up the roar can someone master the roar. And so Ascari personally trains Kion so that he can once again learn to control the roar. And in the process, he reveals a bunch of tricks that Kion never knew the roar could do, pretty much making Kion a master of the roar. And when Kion actually does master the roar, he is able to fight back against Mama Binturong and the other predators, and he's able to defeat them and make them leave the Tree of Life for good. And so, peace returns to the Tree of Life. And then Queen Rani, who didn't really like Kion when they first met, decides to invite Kion and the Lion Guard to stay at the Tree of Life. Even Makini becomes Queen Rani's royal Majusi, which is really good. But anyway, Kion now has to struggle with returning home to the Pride Lands or staying here at the Tree of Life with his wannabe girlfriend Rani. And eventually the decision is made for him when Janja and Jasiri show up and reveal that the Outland Pryans, led by Zira, have attacked the Pride Lands. So the Lion Guard have to get back to the Pride Lands to help defend it against Zira and the Outlander Lions. Eventually they manage to reach the Pride Lands, at which point they try to attack the Outlander Lions, only to discover that Kiara and Kovu have actually formed an alliance with them. Now the Pridelanders and Outlanders are one, so this part takes place after the Lion King 2. Anyway, the Lion Guard try to reconnect with the Pride Lands, and they discover that Vitani, as the older sister to the future King Kovu, is tasked with becoming the next leader of the Lion Guard to protect the Pride Lands. And so the two Lion Guards have a competition to face off to see which Lion Guard is more worthy. Eventually, Vitani calls for a Mashindano, which is basically a leader-on-leader fight that makes it so whoever dies or whoever gives up relinquishes the title of being leader. And with that in mind, Vitani doesn't actually have the roar, while Kion is the master of it. And because of that, just because of the fact that she was willing to fight against Kion despite this major disadvantage, Kion decides to give up, and he says that Vitani should be the next leader of the Lion Guard, even going so far as to give her the roar. But that's when Ascari shows up and says that since Kion was willing to give up the roar to Vitani, he actually became a master of the roar and got it back. And the reason is because the Pride Lands can be protected by Vitani's Lion Guard, but the roar needs to return to the Tree of Life so that it too can be protected. So Kion and the rest of the old Lion Guard return to the Tree of Life to live out the rest of their days. In fact, Kion actually marries Queen Rani and becomes king of the Tree of Life. Kind of funny how, despite the fact that Kiara was supposed to be queen, Kion ended up becoming king before she did, simply because Simba is still alive. Speaking of, I love how they handled Kiara in this series. Granted, during the original Lion King 2, she was kind of this wannabe warrior princess who just didn't have a lot of skills to actually be a good lioness. But here, they actually gave her a lot of skills as well as a lot of wisdom in knowing how to be a future queen, which is really good. She may not be the best lioness out there, but she's definitely not a dainty little flower that the original movie portrayed her as. So honestly, I really enjoyed this series. Granted, yes, this is made for a preschool audience, but to be honest, that doesn't stop it from being good. It actually has the mature themes that the original movies has, which is really good. Not to mention the beautiful animation, which, while not as good as even the direct-to-DVD sequels, they're still really beautiful. And of course, there's also the music, which is really good. Not as iconic as the movie music, but still really great. So I really enjoyed this series, and I recommend it to anyone who is a Lion King fan. It's 100 times better than the Timon and Pumbaa TV show, which for some reason, a lot of people don't agree with me that it was as bad as I think it was. But honestly, that's just my opinion. Everyone is free to have their own. But despite its preschool rating, I consider The Lion Guard to be the superior TV show, especially because it ignored its preschool rating and gave us a good series. So to recap, this show has beautiful animation, although it's not really as good as the movies, but there's also a lot of fun humor, not to mention the fact that there's beautiful music, which is really catchy and can be an earworm, and it's pretty much exactly like a Disney movie. But above all else, its story over the course of season 2 and especially 3 are where this series really shines. And with that in mind, what do you guys think? Make sure to leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Bonus question, what is your favorite song from The Lion Guard? Mine is probably Let's Bring Back a Legend, but with that in mind, I hope that you guys consider supporting me through my channel membership program by clicking the join button down below or going to my channel page, or you can just do the free option and subscribe. But with that in mind, I hope that you're all staying safe out there, and if you are subscribed, keep an eye out for my live-action Lion King review, which will be coming out sometime next month in preparation for the live-action prequel, Mufasa the Lion King. With that in mind, I hope you're all staying safe out there, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.
I'm afraid we'll never get out alive!
Timon? Pumbaa? The entrance to the cave is right there.
See? Barely inside, and we're already lost!